Welcome to Behind the Paywall, the Jackson Post podcast, or if you like to call it the Postcast. I've got my physical copy back finally.
Yay.
It's been a few weeks, and I finally got it in my mailbox yesterday, I think.
Thank you, United States Postal Service.
Thank you, USPS, because I sat on my front porch and I sweated, but I read the entire paper front to back yesterday.
Man, it was
you
hot
surviving?
yesterday.
It was awful. How's it feel outside right now at 9:20 at night?
I mean, it's warm, but I spent all morning on Saturday out covering 3 assignments: the city recycling thing, the Trey Smith football camp, and Jackson Museum School had essentially a block party out at Centennial Park. So I went to all 3 of those for a little while, and I imagine we'll discuss that next week. But my first question for Trey was how many kids have had to be sent to the hospital from this camp? Fortunately, none. But a lot of them, I don't want to say the current kids are a soft generation, but there were a bunch of kids that were having to have a seat over there and get some Gatorade or some water or whatever.
You can say it. It's true.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of those, back in my day, but I have an 18-year-old. I know. I get it. And I'm around teenagers like all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So it ain't the same as it was
They're weak.
back in the 90s. That's right. I would never say that because they could, outrun me and outjump me and do all that other stuff too. But, between us, yes, they are. All right, let's get into this week's edition. The first story I want to talk about, and I'm just going to give the rundown real quick, okay? Just so whoever's watching this or listening to it, here's what we are going to try and cover in this podcast. We may not get to all of it. This isn't everything in the paper by far. It's just the stories that I think need some extra context added to them. And
it sounds like we need to sprint through this.
I know there's a lot. So we are going to start with the Jackson Housing Authority, helps residents connect with services and beat the heat. Mm-hmm. We are going to move on to discussing fireworks sales in Jackson and Madison County for the first time ever.
And forever.
How long? And forever. Then transparency with the Jackson Police Department. That might be my favorite topic to talk about this week. County budget passes. We were both there. No drama. A little bit of drama.
Only while you were in the bathroom.
That's right. That part. Yeah, we never even followed up on that. I forgot about that.
That wasn't even, it didn't even make the story, so it's not even.
Yeah, I'm going to say. Town adding services, and then for sports, Mark Campbell being inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, and Olivia Lee is going to represent Team USA in Brazil. So we got a lot to get through. So let's get to it. Jackson Housing Authority put on like a Beat the Heat, I don't want to say camp, but like some community event, correct?
The actual event was a family expo where, the main thing was to get the parents out to, they had a whole line of tents at the park across the street from Lincoln Courts, which was the one that I went to, but they had one of these at all 3 of their housing developments where all the local colleges were there to show them, hey, if you want to come get some kind of professional certification or get a degree or whatever, this is what all is available. Healthcare was there, social services, like I don't remember seeing them specifically there, but RAP is coming to mind. So I'm thinking some of that sort of thing was there. JPD was there with some of their officers there grilling hot dogs and hamburgers. The fire department was there opening up the fire hydrants and the pumps on a truck to spray down the kids, and the kids were getting in there, getting sprayed, cooling down, because it wasn't as hot as it is this weekend, but it was pretty hot that day, and so they got to cool down for a little while, and then so they turned it into a fun atmosphere while the parents had a chance to take some important steps that hopefully could position them to not need public housing anymore.
That's really cool. And I think for the Jackson Housing Authority, I wanted to talk about this first tonight because we mentioned them last week with the new apartment complex on Royal, and then I forgot what they're called, where Allenton Heights is going to be another housing development.
Blue Creek Apartments and Blue Creek Cottages.
That was the one. And so my computer almost fell. You don't hear a lot about the Jackson Housing Authority, but obviously they fill a very important role in the community. Do you know how they're funded? But this is just a question that popped in my head.
Largely from state and federal funds. And when I say state and federal, it's probably a whole lot more federal than it is state. And probably a lot of the state funding is directly from federal funding. HUD does a lot for them. I have made a few trips over there for some different grant announcements and stuff for different initiatives that they were starting and trying. And I will say one thing about them: when they announce, hey, we've got a grant and this is what it's for, in the year, maybe 15 months that I have reported on them, I'm already seeing evidence. They work faster than other people. I mean, because if we go all the way back to 2022, it was March of 22 when the county commission approved funding for the new Pope School. They did the groundbreaking in July of that year, but they didn't actually break the ground to actually start construction until June of 23. Meanwhile, HUD got funding back in the fall to take out a church, to buy the property and demolish a church that sat across the road from them. And when I went back there for the Blue Creek celebration a couple weeks ago, there is no evidence that there was ever a church building there. So, and later this year, they're going, once they get all their residents out of Allenton, those buildings are going to come down and they'll start preparing to build the cottages. So Mark Reed and his group there and his board, when they say they're going to get something done and they get federal funding to get it done, they go get it done.
That's really good. And they, I mean, obviously, like I said, they do serve a very important purpose within the community. What was the turnout like from the community, or from people coming to the event? Were there a lot of people
from Lincoln
Lincoln
Courts?
Courts?
Yeah, I mean, it was the kids, obviously, they're going to show up and show out for the fire hydrant, but there was a good amount. I mean, it's like church. Over the course of a calendar year, what are the most at most churches, maybe not necessarily the mega churches because they don't do this as much, but at a church of about 60 or between 30 and 200 people, what are going to be your most attended services? Thanksgiving dinner, homecoming where you're having dinner on the ground, all that stuff. You provide food, the people are going to show up. And, shoot. Gabe, you know me. There might have been a part of me who was like, I think I'm going to go interview a cop and get me a cheeseburger on my way out to my
Grilling
car.
dogs. And I will say this. I've been to an event where police officers were grilling, and they, like, those burgers and hot dogs, whatever they put on them, they're a little bit better than your standard fare straight out of the package thrown on a grill, at least in my experience.
There are at least 2 teams from JPD that enter barbecue cook-off contests on a regular basis. And we hadn't even gotten into fire stations. I mean, firefighters.
Well, they cook all the time. Yes,
yeah, they cook all the time. And I think they work more on perfecting their cooking than they do on, hey, how can we put out a burning home quickly? Yes. And that food that's probably in the best term to use when talking about the firefighters, but their food is lit.
Oh, I was going to say their food is fire.
It's fire,
perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, there you go. You walk right into it. Well, since we're talking about JPD, I feel like this is a good transition to the second story. And you actually had an accompanying column with that. First of all, and I've noticed this even before I read the article, but the article is about how JPD wants to engage more with the community. What I've noticed on social media as well is a much more, I don't know if it's a concerted effort, but this probably blends into the transparency of things when they released their crime data for the first 6 months, I guess, or something like that a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And their social media seems more active than it has been, or maybe just the algorithms are switching up on Meta. But I've noticed that. And so when I saw this in the paper, I was like, okay, that makes sense. The impetus for more transparency, obviously it's common sense. I think every public service should be extremely transparent, not just show the great things that are happening, but here's the real story. So what was the impetus for this transparency? Why do they want to engage more in the community?
Well, for one reason is because the public said they wanted to hear more from them. They did a survey last fall, I think, maybe last summer, where they were asking for the public's input on their 5-year plan. And it's like, hey, obviously we want crime to be considerably down in 5 years, but just y'all are the ones who live here. Kind of what do y'all want from us, either in addition or in trying to get to that end? And one big thing that they heard was, we want to hear from y'all. We want to know what's going on, because it was in 2017, I believe, when they cut down on they shut off all public access to the scanners. They did that when I was still in sports, so I've never had access to a scanner as a news person. I remember.
I can understand that. Like, I understand why they would want to do that.
Well, and when we had that conversation last week, Corley mentioned this. I didn't put it in the story, but Chief Corley said, one reason we took it down, we took it down in 2017. Think about what all was going on in the 2 or 3 years leading up to 2017. He said, it never happened here that we know of, but in 2015 and 16, it happened a lot. And everybody remembers what happened in Dallas when there was I think there was being a crime march, and there was a sniper taking out policemen. who were kind of just keeping the peace at this march. He said across the country, people like that would be listening to the scanners, and they're hearing, well, there's a policeman going to this place, so they would be there to essentially ambush him. And so when one of the other media representatives that was there that day asked, hey, can we get access to the scanner again? Corley was like, I appreciate the fact that you want to, and this isn't about you, but we took that down for our safety, and I'm going to stick with that for the safety of my guys and girls that are out there doing the job of keeping everybody safe every day.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Never thought about that aspect of it. I was always surprised that scanners were even a thing. My dad would sleep with it on at night, like all night long. I could hear it from my bedroom. Like, especially sometimes it would squeal really loud. There was some feedback or whatever. But my dad, if he heard something going on, he would sometimes get up and go.
Really?
So, like, I mean, yeah, you just gotta know my dad. That's just what he's. If there is a way, and he's 75 now, so not so much now. But back when he was my age, if there was some type of action he could get into, he was going to do it.
Stone Cold Bobby Hart was going to break that glass and come stomping in.
Yes, I mean literally. He would sleep with it on, and I was, even as a kid, I was like, that's weird that these are just public access, because my thought is, if the criminals are out there, they know where the police are pursuing too. Like they could, I mean, so it just, I don't know. I saw people complain on social media about not having access to scanners, but I'm like, you probably never should have had access to scanners to begin with.
Yeah, I'd never thought of it until after Corley mentioned that my granddad had a scanner. I mean, and my dad had a scanner when he was on our local community's watch patrol. And then either they both came off the watch patrol, or both my mother and grandmother told their husbands, turn the scanner off. We're trying to sleep. We got kids. Shut up. But yeah, I mean, and we had a scanner in the Sun's newsroom up until 2017. Most of the time it was turned down unless the cops reporter was there in the room listening to it. But yeah, and the narrative that I'd always heard whenever it's been brought up is, yeah, we don't want the bad guys knowing that we're on to them. And so we turned it off, but I never thought for a second that it was about their safety too.
And 2015, 16, those were very fraught times, right? I think you had the Ferguson stuff happening around that time. And then I remember in 16, I guess that's when 20, obviously you think about BLM, but that really in 2016, that's when a lot of those protests were happening around the country. Now we're in Atlanta when the Dallas situation happened, and there was one in Atlanta that night as well. We just happened to be right beside it. And I was a little nervous. I mean, because, with whatever happened in Dallas earlier that day. But you wrote a column that sort of accompanied this, because part of this transparency by JPD is they released their crime numbers.
Right.
Was it the first 6 months a couple weeks ago? Is that
January 1st to May 3rd? Yeah.
And apparently somebody, or maybe that wasn't from this, but there was a story you wrote shortly after I wrote a column that referenced some past numbers that some people took issue with as well.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and tell you, I found my numbers from TBI. Like, that is where that database was. Now, I know there was some confusion over what constituted a homicide and what, there was some vernacular there that was a little bit confusing.
Right.
But those numbers were pretty accurate. Your numbers were given to you by JPD, correct? So, and then somebody took issue with that. They said those numbers weren't right, but they wouldn't give you a source.
Right.
Is that how that worked?
Yeah.
How do you, at that point, if a public service like the police department is trying to be as transparent as they can, but people still refuse to believe it? Like, I liked your title. The numbers are what they are. Like, that's just it. So how do you talk to someone like that? Or is that why you wrote the column, just to tell people, like,
just to head that conversation off at the pass? I mean, because we try not to give opinion on here, but let's go ahead and address an elephant in the room that is Jackson. There is a segment of the population here that thinks that there is a conspiracy in City Hall and JPD headquarters to try to make the city look as not bad as possible, and they're willing to lie about the numbers. Now, are they totally truthful with the numbers? If we were to give everybody involved a truth serum and we were to find out, no, they're not, I wouldn't be shocked. But at the same time, I have seen nothing in the last couple of years to give me any reason to believe that they're not. And so, yeah, the numbers that I had, and I remember your column and I remember my story, the difference between the numbers that we gave is that you got yours off the TBI website. Well, the TBI doesn't update their website until they get numbers from every municipality in every county. So right now, if you were to go look at TBI's website, I imagine, and I'm sure somebody that's watching this that cares and likes to say, hey, you're wrong, may go and see that I'm wrong. But for the most part, typically in June, when you look at the TBI's website, the stats are going to have up are from 2 years ago, because in January, they're getting all the stats from 95 counties and at least 95 municipalities, probably somewhere between 95 and 150 municipalities. And they're analyzing all these different categories of crimes, and they're differentiating some of the calls and stuff, because I think they have to actually go, because they got to go back and fact check too, because if Tom Corley is lying about some of his numbers, funding that they get from federal funding sources is based off of the crime that they report. So if they find out that they're wrong, then that's him risking a significant portion of his budget that's not necessarily from Jackson City Hall. But yeah, so your numbers in January were based on 2023 numbers. I got JPD's numbers from 2024 that they had just sent to TBI for the update that'll come later this year, as late as October possibly. And so, and it just so happened that 2023, the year you were discussing, was a little bit of a spike for most crime stats, crime categories. And then in 24, they dropped back down a little bit. And all I did was just write it up. And I took like a list of, I think, maybe 12 crimes that people seem to care about a lot, and said, yeah, there was this many in 22, it jumped up to this many in 23, but last year dropped back down to this number. It also came at the same time as 5 people in Jackson were murdered in the month of January. So it came in the middle of all that too. But yeah, I had somebody who is a part of that segment of society that thinks that believes that there is a conspiracy to make Jackson and its leaders look as good as possible or not look as bad as possible, said, your numbers are wrong. Okay, cool. How do you know? Somebody who would know told me. Okay, how does that person know? Well, I can't tell you, because if I told you how they knew, then you would know who it is. Well, I'm not going to expose who the person is. Just tell me so I can talk to them so that they can educate me and enlighten me and point me to the source. And I won't even name them. I'll just report on the source and what they're saying. No, they want to remain anonymous. Okay, well, this person who wants to remain anonymous says you need to rewrite that story and needs to have the right numbers. Okay, what are the right numbers? At least give me that. No, you need to find that on your own. Okay, well, where am I going to find that besides, who else is going to be reporting on it besides Jackson Police? Is there somebody down there with a chalkboard who is doing the tally with the 4 lines and then the 5th line horizontally through it? You just have to go back and find it and look it up. You need to research that. I was like, all right, we're done with this conversation.
Block. That's what would have happened.
No, I didn't do block, because they are a source. But on that one, I was like, all right, we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, like and it's totally fine if people disagree with each other, but you're going to have some evidence if you're going to challenge something, you at least have your evidence ready to say, hey, here's why this is wrong. 2 things before we move on to the next thing. One is I do understand where people are coming from, and if they think the city is just trying to put their best foot forward. And let me explain that. I think and this is a relatively new thing. I think the school system sometimes falls into this trap as well. PR people are relatively new to government organizations, at least locally, right? I was one for a year and a half in Haywood County. Didn't do super well in that position. CSS has won several awards for their PR, Greg Hammond and his team. The police department, I believe they have a PR person as well, Stephanie Graham, I think.
Right.
But I think anytime you have a PR person that's being paid by the organization as a public relational person to the public, well, they're obviously going to put 9 out of 10 things that are positive about their companies, right? So I do understand how the public can be a little cynical towards that, right? It's like almost like reading the Green Bay Packers team website. Like, I'm not going to get the real story from that. I'm going to get some stuff, but it's mainly going to be fluff about how great the players are, right? Because that's just what those writers are going to write about. So I can see that side of it. I'm not one of those people who doesn't believe it. I can just understand that side of it. That being said, I think more public organizations should put out just a straight facts like JPD does. Like, hey, here's what the numbers are. We're not hiding from them. We're not spinning them. This is what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And now here's what we're doing to address that. So I would love to see even the sheriff's department do the same thing. And maybe they do, and I just don't follow them on social media. I would love to see the sheriff's department do the same thing. The city, hey, here's where we're spending all of our money, right? Everybody wants to know that. Like, let's be completely transparent. This amount of money is going to road work. And I think the city tried to even put that in this year, right? Like this pot of money is specifically going to.
And the city just unveiled the finance portal where you can look and see where money is going.
Yeah. So all of those things are good. I think everybody should want that.
As long as it's factual and it gives the whole story, you're not just going to give the highlights like a social media reel either.
Exactly. Like just a straight up, yes, numbers and data, or at least here's where you can, if it's bulky, here's where you can access all of this data. What is that noise?
I'm hoping it's just fireworks. Either that or
it's Madonna. It's fireworks. You're fine. You're fine. Oh, speaking of, great transition. Unless you had anything to add to the JPD column.
Wow. Yeah. Good point. No, I do want to also mention, if anybody who reads questions anything that I write, I mean, I got no problem with y'all questioning, but be ready to say, this is why I'm questioning it. Don't just say, well, somebody told me. Because, I mean, to be totally honest, I'm not going to be totally honest because I'm not going to say any names or anything. But when I questioned the person about who it was, they wouldn't tell me. I was 99% sure who the person was that told, well, it's wrong. And that person has blocked me on social media. And before that person blocked me on social media, he let me know that the Shields report with Brandon Shields and Gabe Hart was not a quality radio show. And he thought that the Jackson Post was a liberal rag. I was like, you realize we got Adam Dooley and Todd Brady writing on the op-ed page, right?
I mean, I can agree with him on the first part, right? I'm just kidding. What? The liberal? Oh, man. Well,
so when that person says anything, I mean, I hope the person's watching this or listening to this. I take it with about as much grain of salt as I put on something that's already really salty. So, yeah. But
well, if they didn't like the Shields report, they're not watching this.
No, probably not. But unless
it honestly sounds like somebody that's been in bed for 2 hours by this point. Anyway.
That's a very good possibility. I could also see that person watching or listening to this just to have something to whine about too. So
I need to turn up the volume a little bit. Then I'm very reserved on the postcast, beyond the paywall, behind the paywall. All right. Well, we just heard fireworks going off in Madonna, and up until this year, you had to go to Madonna to get your fireworks, but not anymore. There are tacky carnival tents popping up all over Jackson. And I'm like, I don't know why it never registered to me that you couldn't shoot them. Well, people have always shot in the city limits, even though technically you couldn't. And I guess it never dawned on me that you couldn't buy them here either. I don't know why, but it never hit me until all of a sudden I'm seeing all the carnival tents set up everywhere. I'm like, oh, that's different. And I read this article in the paper. You also had did you have a column about this too? Like you had the story.
We had an editorial
like
just explaining how this happened. And then at the end about safety and, hey, be considerate of your neighbors with kids or have to go to work early in the next morning or have dogs or whatever.
Because that's the thing, man. I had a lab. It was a lab basset hound mix. That's a whole other story.
Wow.
But yeah, it was all kinds of screwed up in a lot of ways. But it was deathly afraid of storms and firecrackers. Yeah. And New Year's Eve and 4th of July, I dreaded it. So I feel bad for people who have dogs on nights like that. I really do. I've had that experience before. But I know people love to, shoot fireworks, and this will be an extra special 4th of July probably this year. So, it'll be loud. And I guess this maybe helps our tax base a little bit too. Maybe not our base, but I mean, obviously sales tax will go to Madison County.
Yeah, the sales tax will go to Madison County. Permits have gone to Jackson and Madison County. I mean, how much it moves the needle on a boom to the economy? Probably not much, since right before that, you're getting the state games and the Miss Volunteer America pageant. And then right after it, you're getting the Miss Tennessee Volunteer pageant.
This is our $3.5 million right here in fireworks. That's the deficit.
There you go. Boom. There you go, JP. You don't have to raise taxes this year.
That's it. Just
set up a fireworks stand.
Patriot pastors, poppers.
But you only get 2 weeks, I guess a total of 3.5 weeks to sell. So
just extend it, man. Right?
Make it all year.
Make it like Easter in my church, right? Like it's, we have Easter, but then it just keeps going until Pentecost. So It's like you have a
Yeah,
bunch
that's a
of
good
days
point.
of Easter, right?
Or,
Make it like that.
or when you drive to Chattanooga and you're coming back, and at one point when the interstate, when you get past like South Pittsburgh and you're kind of like in the woods of southeast middle Tennessee, and you're crossing the river, and all of a sudden the interstate forks off, the two different directions fork off from each other, and then all of a sudden there's this big fireworks outlet right in the middle. I mean, put that as service merchandise.
There you go. That's it. 2 problems solved.
There we go.
Deficit and that building and the city's purchase, man. Hope the mayor's not watching.
We're solving the problems of Jackson, Madison County right
You don't need
here
a
in my
mayor or a
backyard,
council.
Medina. Yeah.
Yes. You just have this behind the paywall. So let's kind of show how the sausage is made there. What was the behind the scenes? Like what happened behind the scenes with our state reps and all of that to make sure that we could sell? And why couldn't we sell before? Who approves that?
So back in like the 30s, there was I assume the county commissions and or city council asked for what they call a private act to be passed in the state legislature, outlawing the sale of fireworks in Madison County and Jackson. And so the state legislature was like, okay, sure. And the difference between a law and a private act is something that only applies to one area, like one county.
Like vouchers, like several years ago.
When they were trying to pass a law that only applied to counties whose populations were between 203 and 100,304, which would just be Madison County, and it had something to do with the school board because they were essentially trying to get Doris Black off the school board.
Yep.
That would be called a private act because it didn't apply to all 95 counties. So a private act was passed. And it's been fine. Nobody's really cared. I mean, nobody has really publicly had a serious discussion about it. But over the last couple of years, some of the county commissioners, particularly some of the younger ones, are like, hey, we're young. We've got kids. We like to blow stuff up. And yes, we will go to the Firefighters Freedom Festival on the 4th of July at the airport. But we also like to go home and light some stuff ourselves and blow that up too. How much tax revenue are we missing out on that Medina's getting and that stretch of Highway 45 just south of Pinson? How much are they getting? Because I remember when I worked at Bramlin in Henderson that summer, there was 3 tents set up on one road there. So how much are we losing? I think there was some set up on 412 at the Crockett County line. And so it took a couple of years of discussions and stuff. And finally, I think the county commission had to pass a resolution asking the state legislature to take a look at this. And so they got Johnny Shaw and Chris Todd and Ed Jackson on board with it. And they had to speak in front of the Senate and the General Assembly saying, hey, Madison County wants this. We're asking y'all to vote with them on it. Probably the only people who would vote against it would be the ones representing Chester, Gibson, and Crockett County, because they're losing out on 100,000 people potentially coming to buy some fireworks in their counties. But it passed, and it passed in the 2024 legislative session, so in the spring of 24. So when they passed that put Madison County on the clock. They had until December 31st to essentially, when they passed the revocation of the private act, they had until December 31st to officially make their own resolution okaying the sale and the use of fireworks in Madison County. So they got that done, I think, in November. And all of that came after starting about this time last year. Jeff Wall, county commissioner, was the chairman of essentially a fireworks committee that was made up of some county commissioners, fire chief Eric Turner, and Sheriff Julian Weiser, and they also had Jackson Fire Chief Don Friddle and Jackson Police Chief Tom Corley on this committee too, so that everybody could have quality discussions over it and stuff. Because it was pretty much agreed. I mean, the city said, well, if the county's going to pass it, we want to pass it too. So they all want to say, okay, let's go ahead and be in line together so that the county doesn't pass one thing, that the city comes back and passes something else, to just have it be totally off and screwy, and people be like, well, I want to do this, but I'm in the county, but the city can do it, so now we got to go, that would just be a bunch of unnecessary drama. And so they got all that figured out. They passed the resolution in November, and then once that happened, that essentially made it okay in the county, but there were still some things they wanted to iron out, so they couldn't approve the sales and the usage for New Year's. So they said, okay, we'll back it up to June of 25. So that also gave the city 6 months to essentially copy and paste everything the county did. And they did all that in March, and all that was approved pretty quickly. Then, boom, here we are. We got fireworks stands popping up all over the city of Jackson like mushrooms in a cow pasture after a heavy summer rain.
Wow, good analogy. But yes, like they're everywhere. Like you can, like I noticed that. I was like, damn, these things are all over the place. July 4th should be fun in Madison County and in Jackson. So
Unless you're a dog.
unless you're a dog, man. Or, this is such I hate to even bring this up because it kind of makes me mad when people post on Facebook, but people are like, is it a firework or a gunshot? No, if you live in Midtown, you don't know. It's a whole thing. It could be either. Although, I haven't heard a lot of gunshots lately. And usually summer is when you hear more, honestly. And going back to sort of our previous discussion, I think because of social media, anecdotally, I think everybody probably feels like there is more crime than there actually is because we are made aware of everything in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. Officially or unofficially, right? Like, I don't know if you follow some of these Facebook groups, like what's happening in Jackson or some other stuff. Like, people are just putting stuff on there all the time. Mm-hmm. And so I think the idea of crime is at the forefront of everybody's mind when the reality may not be exactly what people think. Because when I wrote that article, the whole reason I went to TBI website first is because I thought, okay, anecdotally, I think I'm hearing more gunshots in my neighborhood. I'm seeing more about gun violence. So I'm assuming gun violence is up. Maybe I need to check that. Yeah. And so I think oftentimes people just experience these things and they don't go check. They just think because they're hearing more about it, then there must be more. Yeah. And in reality, that may not be the case.
Well, and another thing, and this is implicating me in it a little bit too, although I personally have never been, I don't think, guilty of this. But I remember in 2019 when I went through Leadership Jackson, there was a law and order day, criminal justice day, where we heard from everybody involved locally in criminal justice. And when Sheriff Weiser, he was still chief of JPD at the time, and he was talking, and he said, look, and he opened it up for questions. We had a couple of people, one of them that well, who may be a county commissioner now, was asking about crime and why it's so high in Jackson, and are they fudging the numbers because it seems higher than what it is. And so at the time, Chief Weiser was like, okay, I appreciate you asking this because this is something that needs addressing, and hopefully y'all can help clear this up with people within your circle of influence. Is crime a problem here in Jackson? Y'all see that there are crimes being committed in Jackson. At the time, a lot of the shootings that were happening, they were able to say, well, the shootings happened, but it was people not from Jackson happening in the shootings. We had a string of those for a few months too. And he said, but at the same time, we may have a shooting that happens and somebody's murdered. And so there's going to be an initial report that night at 10 o'clock on WBBJ, and there's going to be a story the next day in the Jackson Sun. But then the next day, they're going to go and talk to the victim's family. And the day after that, they're going to ask for follow-up from us. Hey, have y'all caught, what's the latest on the investigation? Then the day after that, somebody's cousin's going to speak up and say something. So you're getting 3, 4, 5 stories on the same shooting, but some people think that that's actually 5 different shootings going on. He said, so when people see, and these are just numbers I'm coming up with my head, I don't remember exactly what Weiser was saying 6 years ago now, but, if you see, if you're thinking there's 60 murders in Jackson in a year and it's actually only 10, well, it's because you're just constantly seeing more stories about the same shootings going on. So, you've also got to try to keep that in your mind, that just because you see 2 stories from the same news outlet about the same type of crime, it doesn't mean it's 2 different crimes. It's more than likely it's the same crime being reported on twice.
It makes sense. I mean, I don't know. I do think the prevalence of social media, and then I think people want, at this point too, they want to find something wrong or find a reason to distrust.
Like our buddy from the column.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't envy, the people's jobs who have these public facing jobs like that. It's hard. The job itself is hard, but then relating to the public is probably in some ways even harder.
Right.
All right. I'm going to spend a lot of time because I know that we're doing okay. We're only 40 minutes in. County budget passes with not a lot of pomp and circumstance, kind of the polar opposite of what the city council has been going through for the last 2 months. I was at the meeting, as were you. By the way, nice invocation. I was surprised. I mean, I wasn't surprised that you were chosen. I just, whenever they said you're coming to open the meeting in prayer, I was like, oh, okay. And I thought you were going to preach there for a little bit. I was getting settled in.
Can I say the one joke that I cut from what I was going to say because I was like, oh, yeah, this is too long?
Please.
All right. So I was going to open with, Commissioner Wall asked me to do this after a committee meeting. And, and my thought is there's 100,000 people who live in this county, and there's probably like another 50,000 who come into this county for work or shopping or whatever on a regular basis. So I'm probably like number 150,000 on that list who should be up here giving this invocation. But I'm honored and humbled by the fact that that Commissioner Wall would ask me to do this. And I told him that when he asked me this. But then Commissioner Wall also said, but also, by the way, number 149,999 on that list was Commissioner Mark A-Day. And he literally had just asked A-Day, and A-Day had said no. So I was next up to that.
Wow. Why do you say he said no? Well, I didn't want to tell you. Jeff Hall asked me to do it as well, and I was like, "Listen,
So yeah,
you're suited for this."
You're 149,998.
I did not get asked. Surprisingly, I did not get asked to give the invocation to the county commission meeting.
Well, they want to make sure that if somebody's talking to God, God's actually going to listen.
Wow, man, you're right. They were like, "Listen, we need prayer to pass this budget."
I'm sorry, don't laugh at that. That I shouldn't have said that. I apologize.
No, laugh. That's funny. It's funny.
I talked about what a great father you were last week. I had to take a dig at you this week.
Were you well, you probably weren't surprised at how smooth that budget passed, because we talked about this a couple episodes ago. It seems like the county really stays on top of their budget stuff like year round. So I know we had a little drama 2 summers ago with the school system and all of that, but and then this time, and this we'll kind of talk about this because this was in the story. There's a little bit of drama leading up with, we're not going to rehash the whole Terica Smith, Mayor Massey deal because we talked about it 2 different times on 2 different episodes.
Yeah.
But at the meeting, you mentioned the article, Commissioner Deaton did want to make it a point to say that he disagreed with the budget, I guess, or didn't like, I was there. I don't remember him saying specifically that part of it, or he just had a disagreement with it overall.
He mentioned the mayor's budget. He didn't mention anything about the HR director, the deputy mayor, or anything like that. He just said the mayor's budget. And he said, I'm not on board with this, so I will not be voting for the budget. Apparently nobody agreed with him because nobody else spoke up, but also, and nobody brought this up during the meeting, but when he made that speech, it was not time to vote on the budget yet. It was actually, they were voting, it was actually the agenda item before the budget vote. So I don't know if he had waited until it was time to actually talk about the budget, if anybody would have responded then. I doubt it, because I think at this point, everybody is ready to go ahead and pass the budget. And I think the budget is like 334. Last year was 330 something million, or 303 million or something like that. 5% and 7% pay for Miss Smith is, I don't know, $500 maybe, or something like that. I don't know if any of the other 24 commissioners or any of the other 22 who were present that night were really going to stop the passage of an entire county's budget over a couple of grand. So I think they were just ready just to go ahead and get it passed and move on.
And it was, I showed up at that meeting. I wasn't expecting any kind of drama. I can just rarely go to meetings like that. And this was a night meeting, and I was able to get to it. So I don't know. I thought most of it, honestly, was very boring. And I do have one question. When they're making a lot of motions to basically not go line by line in some of these, I guess, money transfers.
Budget amendments, yeah.
Budget amendments. At first, I was like, well, shouldn't they go line by line? Like, in the name of transparency, and here's where this money is being moved from, and here's where this money is being moved to. Like, I guess that was in the interest of saving time. Do I want to be there for 4 hours or what?
A little bit of that, but also when you see, well, first off, I mean, Jeff Wall, he stood up and asked a question that I was wondering too. Over the course of about a year and a half after the 2022 elections, when some of the younger guys were starting to get more prominent roles in some of these committees. And he's no longer on the commission now, but I'll give him a lot of credit. Joey Hale was one who was really pushing for streamlining the whole budgeting process and the whole handling of the budget. The previous year, the 21-22 fiscal year, they had, over the course of 12 months, however many meetings that is, they had, I think the number that Karen Bell said was 436 budget amendments in that fiscal year that they had to vote on. And that was back when Arthur Johnson was still the budget chair. Well, it was going through financial management at that point, and he was the financial management chairs. God bless Arthur Johnson. He's been on the commission for a very long period of time that I plan on writing about later this year. So he's on up there in age, and they're asking him to stand up there for 45 minutes at a time, reading off line by line. You know, $274 for, a few reams of paper for the central office or something like that. And I'm doing an extreme, for instance, type thing. I don't ever remember them voting on a ream of paper for the central office. And so they finally made a rule. Okay, we are only going to vote on budget amendments that are affecting maintenance of effort, which is the minimum amount that the county is required to spend on a department based on what they spent on them last year. So if a budget amendment could potentially raise that MOE, maintenance of effort, then they're going to vote on that and vote to approve it or reject it. If it's affecting anybody's pay rate, they'll vote on that. And I think the other one was capital expenses, and that may even have a minimum standard before they vote on it. And there were some meetings there for a couple of years where they might have had only fewer than 10, when generally when before they were averaging somewhere between 35 and 50 per meeting. So it really streamlined that process throughout the year. And Commissioner Wall was like, wasn't a lot of these not supposed to be happening? But I think what it was that a lot of these were turned in late to the committee. And so the committee wasn't able to look at it. So it had to go to the full body. And that's when Carl Alexander, who is the current budget chair, said, yeah, we've been kind of lax on the deadline. We're going to start enforcing that a little harder, starting in August when the next meeting happens.
For argument's sake, and this isn't even for argument's sake, this is just me thinking about this personally. I would want every budget amendment read out loud. Because I feel, I know that there are certain parameters set in place so you don't, I'll go over maintenance of effort. But when there's money being moved around, theoretically, couldn't somebody just slide some stuff in there that may not be, not, I'm going to say legal or ethical, but it just seems like when money's shifting back and forth, you would want to know where that money is shifting back and forth to.
And that's why there's a budget committee. The budget committee is looking at all this stuff. They're just not sending everything else to the full body. And and you think about any committee, which granted the budget committee is dealing with the money. That is a very important issue. But let's take, for example, Mayor Massey is the chair of a subcommittee looking at the possible construction of a new juvenile detention center, which I think was written about in this edition of the paper. There are certain things, there's a number of things. If there's a list of 20 things that committee is dealing with this issue, maybe as many as 5 on that list of 20 is going to go to the full body commission, because it's like, we're going to trust this committee to take care of this, and then we'll see the finished product when they send it to us, which it's also a subcommittee, and I think it's a subcommittee of property. Maybe wrong on that, but let's just go ahead and assume it is. Whatever committee it's a subcommittee of, they will send it to that committee, and that committee will look at it and have a kind of polish it up, shine it up real nice, turn it sideways, and send it to the county, to the full commission.
I was waiting to see if you would go there.
And then when they see the finished product, then if they have questions, then they can ask the committee members, and they can ask the subcommittee members who are on the committee. And, Mayor Massey is usually there for the meeting, so he's there to answer any questions, so that they can get those answers before they vote on the whole finished product. So I just explained to you the purpose of a committee.
I get it. That makes sense. I guess, what was the former deadline of when departments had to have budget amendments turned in? Would that be a month by month thing where you would just cover each month, hey, here are the amendments for this month, and then?
Yeah, I think it's just got to be in before the budget committee meets, and generally they meet they're unrelated to each other. They just happen to be meeting the same day. I think they're the same day as the city council meeting each month, which is the first Tuesday of the month every month. So, and then anything after that normally just gets pushed back to the following month. So it would be discussed on the first Tuesday of the following month. The only reason that it might be fast tracked to this month is if it's, every single toilet in the courthouse went out. We've got to fix that. Okay, we can't wait 6 weeks. Everybody who works in the courthouse can't be running across the street to City Hall or to Subway to use the bathroom. We need to get that fixed now.
And go over there to the Idea Factory.
There is that too.
There's an alley back there, I think, like beside it, maybe that it could be used for that. Anyway,
or just right in front of the door.
Maybe,
But
maybe in the door.
In the door. Yeah, there too. Anyways, they but they got to fix stuff. And so usually those are the ones that get sent to the full body without the budget committee looking at it.
Okay. That clears that up. All right, let's jump on to sports. Skipping over one story. But I want to talk about Mark Campbell, legendary coach of Union University Women Bulldogs. Is that how you Lady Bulldogs?
Lady Bulldogs.
Lady Bulldogs.
Women Bulldogs? Come on, man.
Well, Lady Bulldogs. I know.
These are ladies, not women.
Wait, they're both. I was there. I was a student when Coach Campbell took over. I'm pretty sure. I know the first year they won was my freshman year, and Blackstock was the coach.
That was 99, right?
I think that was 98.
98,
I was a freshman,
okay.
Spring of 98.
Campbell took over in 2000.
Okay, so I was a senior then. Yep, that's what it was. But Mark was an assistant. I was seeing him around. He would play at noon with us sometimes. I think he played at Lipscomb, I believe. So, yeah.
Well, he may not have played. I know he was like a student assistant coach at Lipscomb under Coach Don Meyer.
Don Meyer.
Like everybody that was at Union 15 years ago, all coached under Don Meyer.
Well, that's probably why they were so successful, or one reason why they were so successful. But Mark's been there for a long time. I used to go out and practice, even in grad school, even as in my mid-20s, I would go and practice against the girls because Mark would get guys who could play a little bit, right? Probably not as good enough to play like for the men's team at Union, but still understood basketball. And so we would go out there and we would scrimmage against the women, and we could not block shots. That was the only rule. We could not jump. Everything. I know. The first time I got out there, so I don't know who it was. She was coming down the lane and she did some floater, and I came out of nowhere and just, I was like a foot taller than she was. And he blew the whistle, explained to me the situation, and I got it. Now, there was a girl I was guarding, Josephine, I think.
Josephine Owino?
I believe it was her. Would this have been in 2000? Maybe it wasn't Josephine.
I was going to say, she was still there in 08.
Okay, it would have been. It was about 2005 or 2006.
Okay.
And man, I took so many elbows in the chest, and not intentional. That's just how she played. And Mark was he encouraged them basically just to beat the heck out of us because it got them ready for whoever they played. And obviously, I guess it worked a little bit because that program's been very successful.
Is this what drove you out of the church?
No, yes. Coach Campbell's militant orders for his basketball team to.
It makes sense.
Beat the heck out of us. It was interesting to watch him because his demeanor is very he's pretty chill. But the way he could communicate to them, every word that he said, they were dialed into. Now this is this was 20 years ago, but I'm assuming not much has changed because
they're still that way
successful. Yeah. So this is a big deal. This is the Women's National Basketball Hall of Fame that he was just inducted to. Where is that exactly?
Knoxville.
Oh, it's in Knoxville. Oh, of course. Okay.
I have heard rumors, and obviously nobody from the NCAA or Women's Basketball Hall of Fame is ever going to confirm this or deny, but apparently at one point there was an effort and a plan to build the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame adjacent to what is now called Rockabilly Stadium. And I forget why they were going to put it here, but I have been told that. And then apparently at the last minute, Knoxville swooped in and said, hey, shouldn't you put it in the same town where Pat Summitt kind of made her name famous? And they were like, well, she won her 500th game at Oman Arena, but okay, whatever.
I don't think that's enough to get the Hall of Fame.
But yeah, I mean, I've heard that. But yeah, it's in Knoxville. So when he was inducted last week on Saturday night, he was in Knoxville with his family, and your buddy and mine, Stephen Aldridge, was there, along with President Dub Oliver. He was there to be a part of the festivities as well. And I'll be honest with you, I nearly wrote this column last week, but it was going to require me to sit down and think for a minute, and I didn't really have a minute to think. But this may be the highest honor that anybody connected to Madison County sports has ever gotten. Is Tall in the NFL Hall of Fame? He's not? Okay.
I'm 99% sure he's not. So if he is,
Is he or Al Wilson, Trey Teague, any of them in the College Football Hall of Fame?
ooh. I don't think Trey is. He might be in the College Hall of Fame. I honestly think he might.
Yeah. I don't remember it happening. I'd like to think that if it has happened, it would have happened since I've been here since 2008, and I don't remember it happening.
He may not be. I feel like there's something there of his, though. Like there is some display, maybe from the national championship season in 98.
Yeah. So, but if I'm correct, none of those guys are in any of those Hall of Fames. And the two highest honors that sports people have gotten from Madison County is Mark Campbell, the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, and Trey Smith being on Monday Night Raw last year.
That was the highest honor. That's Trey's highest honor. Not back-to-back Super Bowls.
No. It's Monday Night Raw.
Monday Night Raw. You're right.
Standing up to Braun Strowman.
Strowman's not even there anymore, I don't think, is he?
No, they released him about a month ago.
People did not clamor for him to come back like they did Ron Killings, though.
They did not.
Yeah. Well, never mind. We'll just get off on
that's a whole other podcast right there.
If I keep going. All right. So congratulations to Coach Campbell. This is just continuing, sort of like, oh my God, look at that.
Did it actually fall that time?
It did. It actually fell that time. I called it, though.
Good job.
This is sort of like a legacy that we've been talking about. I know like 3 or 4 episodes ago, we just kind of went down all of the professional athletes that have come out of Jackson just in the last 25 years. And now, like, we got a coach going to the Hall of Fame of the sports that they coach. Like, these are big deals. And Jackson's not a big town, but we've had a lot of big names come out of here and find a lot of success, So congratulations to Coach Campbell. Hope he continues to coach for a long time. Last thing, Olivia Lee is staying with women's basketball, staying with Jackson, staying with high honors. Olivia Lee is going, and Union, that's right. She is going to represent Team USA. Is that correct? In Brazil. For the summer games, is that right? Do you know who's coaching Team USA? How the players were selected?
I don't know how they were selected. I know that it's a Division II team. Apparently, there's an NCAA Division I team, an NCAA Division II. I would assume there's Division III and maybe even an NAIA team. But Olivia was selected to be on the Division II team. And so they're going to go over or travel down to South America, play in Brazil. Just a quick joke, as I was writing a blurb for that story, because I was a staff report that I got from Union. Thank you, Stephen.
Stephen Aldridge, shout out.
Yeah. So I didn't write the story, but as I'm writing a blurb, I told my wife, Carrie, she was sitting next to me on the couch as I was writing it. And I said, this is how West Tennessee I've become. I'm saying that she's playing in Brazil, and my first inclination was to say a country in South America to differentiate from the community at the Gibson-Dyer County line.
Well, that you could have done that.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Team USA is not going to go play at the old whatever school used to be in the community of Brazil. So, anyways. Yeah, they're going to go. It's in July that they're playing, and I'm not sure how many teams are going to be in it. It's been a minute since I've looked at the story, but there are probably about 100 people who play basketball in the nation of the United States, and only a few dozen are going to be representing our country in Brazil next month. And Olivia Lee, a graduate of Trinity Christian, current player at Union, is going to be one of them.
That's amazing. I mean, that's really cool. Now, what position does she play? Because she has a sister or two, right? How many sisters did she have that also?
There are 3 sisters.
That's what I thought.
And then there's a younger brother who is about to be a senior at TCA.
I don't know the brother. I officiated all of the sisters, though. At one time or another.
Right. And the older sister's done already with basketball. The middle sister, gosh, I'm so sorry. Names have escaped me. The middle sister finished her time at Macy Lee. She finished her time at Union this past season. So they were able to play one season together. They all 3 played together 1 year at TCA. And I may be wrong, but I think it was the year that they won state in 2020.
Probably. If you had 3 Lee sisters in Division II private school, you're probably going to win state.
I was going to say, from everything I've heard about their mom, Kristen Lee, yeah, she produced 3 quality basketball players, and they're all on one team. Yeah, that's going to be a state championship quality team. And
boy, I tell you what, man, their mom would give me hell from the stands. I'm not going to lie. Like if she in Trinity games, the thing about private school games is they're not packed all the time. So you hear everything, but even if that gym was completely crowded, I still would have heard, I think, everything that she would say. So hey, but they played all. You're exactly right. She produced 3 extremely talented players. That runs in the family. I mean, her
and
uncle
just
played
nice
at
people.
LSU, and yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know them personally, but yeah.
From the time that I've spent, I mean, Olivia, the post started Olivia's senior year at TCA, and she had won Miss Basketball the year before. So it had been a few years since I'd really been active in sports coverage, so I didn't know the older 2 sisters as well. But talking to Macy, what little I did in March during their tournament run to the national semifinals, and then Olivia while she was at TCA, and then some this year. I mean, they're quality people who were raised right and play the game right and represent whatever team they're playing for well, pretty much most of the time or all the time.
Something about Trinity, man. They have this knack for getting these like all-star sibling duos or trios and playing on the same team somehow. Like the Renfros were like that in softball. You may not have been here, but I coached at USJ at the time, and my first year coaching, we beat them in a district and region championship. And it was tense because they were up and coming, and they had literally never beaten USJ in the history of either program.
Yeah.
And then the next year was Ivy. She's an 8th grader playing up. And when she pitched against us, it was like, oh, this is going to be bad. And it was. And they beat us every time there was just nothing like we could do against her. And she was an 8th grader. And I remember sitting in the dugout just watching. And it's almost like the softball was released from her hand halfway to the plate. Like that's just what it looked like. And it was not a prayer. Not a prayer. So
yeah, I got here, I think, for her junior year. And in 2010, I may have gotten here for her sophomore year. I just remember in 2010, USJ had already gone to Division II at that point. TCA won state in Division I Class A. Lauren Rydell led USJ to the state championship Division IIA. Those were, if you were a softball fan watching in Jackson that year, plus Camden won state in AA, and they beat Covington in the state championship. So West Tennessee softball that year, I don't know if it was at its peak, but it was definitely a high time for them.
Who would have we never know where this show is going to go. We just finished up talking about high school girls softball
from 15 years ago.
From 15 years ago. Yeah. Well, that is it, Brandon. Thank you so much. There was a lot in this issue, like nothing incredibly dramatic or serious, but just a lot of really good information about the community. So well done. Another good issue.
Thank you, sir. Well, Absolutely. Thanks for doing this podcast.
Yeah. One more question. City Council, is there a special call meeting this week or no?
Yes, tomorrow morning, if you're listening live, it is Monday at 9 o'clock. I mean, I hadn't even done a bingo board for it yet because I'm hoping it's going to be done in less than 10 minutes. They're going to vote to pass the budget on second reading, which would officially pass the budget. And then I think they're going to discuss a insurance recovery thing for a crashed JPD vehicle or something like that. So... and hopefully it's done after that. You never know if anybody might bring, I've got a whole new budget proposal here that we need to discuss, and they're going to spend an hour and a half on that.
God, I hope so. I'm just kidding. I don't. I may try to show up tomorrow. I don't know, but my daughter and I are knee deep in community service stuff. Well, I'm sorry, she is. I might be helping out with some of that. So just don't tell the Hope Scholarship that I'm helping out with some of that or whatever.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, it's really nothing. We're literally just helping with the animal care center.
Well, hopefully they wouldn't care if you're helping.
No, it's not. I mean, I don't think they'll care.
As long as you're not falsifying her hours served or whatever.
No. We're doing all the hours. We're just trying to be a little more efficient. We're essentially taking newspapers and unfolding them lengthwise so they'll fit in the cages, right? And so there are boxes of those. Like I can't even. She's gonna get 8 hours for it, but in reality, it's probably gonna be like 20.
Well, good for her.
Yeah. It's good. So we're working on that, watching all the Hunger Games movies.
There you go.
All right, buddy. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks a lot.
You too.
See you next
week. Thank y'all
week.
for watching. See ya.